One thing that is so cool to see this time of year is all the pollen coming in on the entrance. I mean, every bee that comes in the entrance is just loaded with pollen, and that's just beautiful to see. I mean, in this bee yard here, we've got about 650 double deep hives and about 1,000 nooks, and they're still all just loaded with pollen. So it's just wonderful this time of year. Almost no matter how many hives you put in a bee yard, in this area at least, there's plenty of pollen still for the bees. So really cool to see. So let's look at this hive. And as always, I try to get a quick look at the bee population, you know, right as I open the lid. And they've got a pretty good bee population. They've got, you know, a deep box. The top deep box is pretty much full of bees. And so, you know, I like taking a quick look at the brood. They've got great brood. You know, you can see it's pretty much a complete frame of cat brood. On the other side, they've got a frame of nectar. There's definitely nectar coming in at this point, but it's not enough for the bees in most cases to make a surplus of honey. In some local areas they are, but in most cases it's just enough to keep them going on their own. In a lot of cases we still have to feed. This hive is a pretty good example. They've got really only a couple frames of honey up here, and so they kind of need to be fed. They've got, you know, a couple frames of honey, but for the most part they're pretty dry, and so this is a hive that needs to be fed fairly soon. Oftentimes when I'm doing a hive inspection, I have to go quickly, and so I pull and look at 2 frames at a time. So you can see I've got 2 frames in my hand, and I'll pull and look at one side. So that side is solid brood, and I flip it and look at the other side, and it's solid brood as well. And so I know the insides of these 2 frames are brood as well, because bees always put brood together. And so I'll often go 2 by 2 and say, yep, there's brood there, I've got brood. And then I'll often look at the frame still in the box and say, yep, I see brood there. So you can get a quick count of how many frames of brood you have, often without even pulling out many frames. And so I really only had to pull out this 1 single frame and 2 double frames, and I already know that this hive has 5 frames of brood up here in the top box. And you can kind of do the same in the bottom. And I always like to get a feel for how much weight. This top box, even though it's got 5 frames of brood, is pretty lightweight, and really could use some food. So the bottom box looks about the same. It's pretty full of bees. So I'm going to take a quick look there. Pull a frame out. Beautiful. I've got beautiful brood. Look at all that beautiful pollen around the edges. Gorgeous pollen. Lots of eggs and larvae. So I've got my 1 frame out. It's brood. I'm going to pull my double frames out. I've got brood on that side. I've got brood on that side. So there's 2 frames of brood. I look down in the bottom. That frame's brood. So down here in the bottom, I also have 5 frames of brood. So this hive has 10 frames of brood in total. So it is definitely ready to split. The bottom box is pretty full of bees. The top box is pretty full of bees. I've got 10 frames of brood. So this hive is going to swarm in the next couple of weeks at least if I don't split it or put more boxes on it. So at this point with this hive, I'm going to split it. I'm going to put 3 frames of brood per split, and I'm going to get about 3 splits out of this 1 hive. Now, if I wanted to, if I didn't have my queens coming yet, then I would just put another box on it. So I would get, you know, a deep or a medium box, and I would just put it right on top, and I would give them some food, because if you put an empty deep box on it, let's say, and you start giving them some syrup, that queen will move up and she'll start laying in that 3rd deep, and then you'll have, you know, that much more brood to make a split with. If you don't want to make a split with a hive like this, I would just put a queen excluder on it and put my deep super or medium super of comb on top, and I would, you know, let them start storing whatever nectar they can bring in. If I didn't have a super withdrawn comb, if my supers were all foundation and you did not want to make a split, this is a great chance to get that comb all drawn out with a really strong hive that you're not going to split. So I would just put a deep or a medium box of, or shallow box of comb, of foundation right on top of this really strong hive, and give them a couple gallons of syrup, and they'll draw out that box in usually a week or two. So it's a great time to get any extra comb that you need drawn out with these really strong hives if you're not going to make a split.